The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
Today's world news, what it means, where it's taking us.
I bring you the one and only possible message of world peace.
This is a message of hope, tremendous hope. And he said unto me, you must prophesy again.
The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
They want change. Conservative leader Friedrich Merz is set to become the country's next chancellor after a record number of Germans cast their ballots in the highest turnout since reunification.
Surging to second place, the alternative far right, the strongest finish for the party since World War II. Issues at the forefront: immigration, the economy, and the United States. Conservative leader Friedrich Merz now on track to become chancellor and stressing a need for German independence from America.
Die absolute Priorität aus meiner Sicht ist, dass sich die
My absolute priority will be to strengthen Europe as quickly as possible, so that step by step we can really achieve independence from the United States.
von Donald Trump ist klar, dass den Amerikanern
But at the very least, after Donald Trump's statements last week, it is clear that the Americans, at least this part of the Americans in this administration, are largely indifferent to the fate of Europe.
There is this sense of urgency for Europeans. Remember that Germany is Europe's largest economy. It is also a powerhouse of the European Union politically.
German voters have very clearly expressed their concerns. They are clearly showing that they want Germany to have strict control of its own borders. And secondly, they are rightly concerned about the deep economic malaise in which Germany currently finds itself. If they fail in these important undertakings, then the AfD really will be at the door of government in 4 years' time, or perhaps even sooner than that.
It remains to be seen what will happen in the next few weeks. But friends, if what we predicted occurs, that the CDU carries out election fraud on the AfD by copying our program and then entering into a coalition with the left wing, then there'll be new elections faster than you can imagine, and we will overtake the CDU, and that is our aim.
As we commented last week, the pace of prophetic events, it really is accelerating. Yesterday, you had the elections there in Germany as they swing to the right. Merz is the new chancellor, or will be. Doesn't have, I guess, a strong mandate. But when you factor in the AfD pulling in 20% of the vote, there you hear their spokesman saying that basically, if they're guilty of election fraud, if they stole our ideas to get voted in, but then they come into an alliance with some left-wing group, well, then we're going to have more elections soon. You're listening to Stephen Flurry. This is the Trumpet Daily. We appreciate you joining us on today's show. You can get to the live video stream of this program at trumpetdaily.com or at the Rumble channel, rumble.com/Trumpet Daily. What's truly astonishing to watch here is not just that, you have the German leadership in turmoil. Really, there still is a lot of division. And we're waiting for the Daniel 8 man to show up, to come in by flatteries, to receive widespread support, not just in Germany, but all across Europe. But as I say, what's so astonishing as we watch this transpire is to see the United States pushing Germany to be great again. Make Germany great again. As we titled our show last week, this is what's happening. Donald Trump tweeted this out in response to the new elections. He says, looks like the Conservative Party in Germany has won the very big and highly anticipated election. Much like the USA, the people of Germany got tired of the no common sense agenda, especially on energy and immigration, that has prevailed for so many years. Here again, it's like we ignore the elephant in the room. It's like we ignore the hostilities that were there all the way through World War II and beyond. I'll show you that from the Trumpet magazine. We, like I said last week, we've been right on top of this development the reemergence of the German Empire going back to the 1990s. We've got an article, actually a booklet, on the Balkans showing just how fast the newly unified Germany there in the early 1990s moved to consolidate its former glory, its former empire. And that continues. Don't be deceived by thinking, well, it's been several decades and surely times are different than they were decades ago, or certainly different than they were in the 1940s. No, as Herbert Armstrong said, that movement supporting Adolf Hitler, it just went underground. Even before the defeat in 1945, they were plotting and planning for the next round of hostilities. Do you believe that? Most people don't. Most people do not. President Trump says, this is a great day for Germany and for the United States of America under the leadership of a gentleman named Donald John Trump, he says. Congratulations to all, many more victories to follow. So we're just, it's like we're one and the same. We're allies. Germany's going through they're going through the same Make Germany Great Again movement that we've experienced right here in the United States. Well, your Bible talks about us being betrayed by our lovers, those we perceive to be our allies. That's a prophecy that's yet to be fulfilled, or at least fully fulfilled. It will be. It's in the process. I mentioned this. I might have played this last week, but it's worth playing again. It's from my father's Key of David program from over the weekend, clip 11.
They have a party now in Germany. I think they have about 17% of the vote. The AfD party, which is really the neo-Nazis or new Nazis. And Elon Musk is encouraging them to keep growing. But he doesn't understand Bible prophecy, or I don't think he would be making such a statement. That's something we need to think about.
Musk has said that, I gave you those quotes last week, he said that the AfD is the only party that can save Germany. So here they're now up to 20%. And as you heard in the cold open, they're saying if you don't carry out our policies, then we're going to be seeing more elections in the near future. This is from The Spectator. Can Germany rise to the challenge of protecting Europe? I gave you all these articles last week talking about the steps that Germany should now take. You heard in the cold open from Merz. He's there saying, look, we've got to, step by step, we've got to be completely independent from the United States. So even considering the comments, the statements coming from German leaders and coming from Donald Trump, Trump's there saying, this is great. This is great for Germany. It's just like what's happening in the U.S. And then for their part, they're saying, we need to be completely independent of the United States. In other words, we can't trust the United States of America. They're abandoning us. They're abandoning Ukraine. And then you look into their double dealings. There was a tweet that went out this morning about Merz. I think he used to be associated or work for BlackRock, and just how invested they are in Russian energy, and how his party, previous to this one, basically solidified the alliance with Russia, with Russian energy, Russian gas, Russian oil. So here they're totally dependent on Russia. They're entering into these transactions with Russia, of all people, of all nations, and then telling the United States, well, you've got to go and help Ukraine. And just give all of your money. Just give it away. Quite unlike the Europeans. Donald Trump's, he's still on that theme. The Europeans giving out loans on the condition that they get paid back. And yet here it's just $350 billion from the United States. And the U.S. gets nothing in return? Play that short montage we have. I think that's number 8.
So today marks 3 years since the start of the war in Ukraine, and French President Emmanuel Macron will be at the White House today, where he's expected to urge President Trump to do more for Ukraine in those peace talks. And now Ukrainian President Zelensky is even offering to step down if it will secure peace in NATO membership for his country.
I do not see the United States having Ukraine enter into NATO and then having United States troops essentially obligated immediately in terms of Article 5 or coming to have U.S. troops coming directly in for the defense of Ukraine. That is very different.
I'm dealing with President Zelensky. I'm dealing with President Putin. I'm trying to get the money back that or secured, because, you know, Europe has given $100 billion. The United States has given $350 billion because we had a stupid, incompetent president and administration. 350. But here's worse. Europe gave it in the form of a loan. They get their money back. We gave it in the form of nothing. So I want them to give us something for all of the money that we put up.
So there he is saying we've got to get something back in return, which is completely reasonable. And then there's some commentators, like I read last week, that even agree with President Trump, even in Ukraine. It's fair. You know, we've been giving you hundreds of billions of dollars, and you can't turn over any of those mineral rights, not even a percentage, a fraction of it. Donald Trump's, as I said last week, he's exposing the European hypocrisy, the double dealing, the fact that they haven't been paying into the kitty, their fair share, I should say. You know, step back for a moment. I know I touched on some of this last week, but who is warning about a newly resurgent Germany? Who's sounding the alarm? Nobody. Now, and this is in the booklet we have on the Watchmen. It's also in our Ezekiel booklet. That prophecy in Ezekiel 33, where the first 6 verses, it's talking about a political watchman that was on the scene, brought in by the people, reluctantly, you could say. Because for so many years, Winston Churchill was in the wilderness, crying out in a wilderness. Nobody would listen until it was very nearly too late. And then they brought him into power, the people did, and Churchill, I mean, he nearly single-handedly awakened the Western world and rallied the troops, so to speak. Not just in Britain, but in America, in France, in the West, to fight against that Nazi war machine. Adolf Hitler's forces wanted to take over and dominate the world. This time around, the watchman that sounds the alarm, it's not a political watchman that the people select or choose. It's God's watchman. It's a prophet of God. It's a prophet, just an extension of an end-time Elijah that God sent to this earth. Herbert Armstrong, again, our brochure, he was right. Takes you through the signature prophecy and more. God selects the watchman this time around, and that's why you're not going to get the alarm sounding anywhere else except from God's church. If you just consider some of the, and again, this is brought out by the prophecies regarding the Daniel 8 man. There's some parallels for sure. I mean, the 7th and final resurrection of the Holy Roman Empire, in a lot of ways, it's an extension of the 6th, but there's also some important differences. For example, the Nazis this time around are going to be coming back into power much more subtly. Again, the Daniel 8 man comes in with flatteries, saying the right things, sounding like he wants peace. But then there's the mind change and so on. And of course, one other, what should be another most alarming difference is that this time around, Ephraim and Manasseh, the nations of Israel, I mean the United States and Britain, they are encouraging Germany to rearm. I mean, in the lead up to World War II, that was alarming. So many of the Western leaders tried to turn a blind eye to it. Say, well, maybe we can sign a peace agreement. We know that they're rearming even as we speak. They got the peace agreement. They waved the sheet in the air. But here, this time around, it's not just, hey, we need a conservative right-wing government, but you also need to lead Europe in building this European military. The European armed forces. And then, as you heard there in that cold open, it's truly astonishing. We're going to separate from the United States. Step by step, we're going to have our own independence, and we're going to lead the way. And no one is bothered by this at all. No one. When European leaders discussed their response to U.S.-Russian negotiations about ending the war in Ukraine, the German chancellor felt a little irritated. Further on, it says, the speed of Trump's push for a peace deal will require a clear stance from Germany very soon. This is from where? Well, it's quoting a historian. Does it say it there? Spectator. There you go. It says further on, under a prudent Scholz, this is the former chancellor, Germany can't build credible deterrents to back a future peace deal in Ukraine, but Merz, Friedrich Merz, the man likely to succeed him, has a chance to rebuild Germany's role in European defense. I mean, you just wouldn't have gone there even 20 years ago. Remember back in the time of Zu Gutenberg when he was the defense minister, I think it was sending troops to Afghanistan. I mean, even that was controversial. Sending German troops abroad? I don't know if we want to go there. Now they're just talking about Germany leading the way. Yeah, they're the economic powerhouse of Europe, soon to be the military leader as well. And it has America's blessing. It has Donald Trump's blessing. Germany's next chancellor has a real opportunity to do what Scholz promised and never delivered, to create a strong, fighting fit Germany in the center of Europe that is able to help deter Russian aggression. That's the pretext for this strong, fighting fit German military. And that's at the Spectator. Yeah, everybody's talking about it. Everybody's encouraging it. No one has a problem with it. No one even brings up the history. It's astonishing. This article from German Foreign Policy just talking about the tariffs. Here again, it's subtle, but you can see the difference in the tone. When you hear Donald Trump come around and say, this is great, it's a conservative uprising. And then you hear Merz say, this is great, we need to separate from the United States. This is German Foreign Policy on the tariffs. The U.S. efforts to consolidate its crumbling global dominance with a policy of brute force are also confronting Germany with a difficult decision to support or to oppose Washington. Economically, Germany is highly dependent on U.S. business relations since it decided to reject the continued purchase of cheap Russian gas and join in attempts to squeeze trade with China through tariffs and sanctions. Germany has lacked alternatives. It's effectively trapped. In other words, it's too dependent on America. It's going to have to eventually go all in with America or break free from America and cozy up to Russia behind closed doors, and China too. Anything to squeeze out the United States and Britain. That's what's coming. It's prophesied. Mart of Nations, Isaiah 23. And we're going to be watching it. We're going to be following it. We're going to be talking about it all the time. We have to. Like I told you last week, I mean, as soon as Jeroboam's inaugurated, I mean, it's like the next message that my father gives. He's saying, all right, the focus now is going to be on Germany. Not for other media outlets, but for this one for sure. For the Trumpet.com for sure. For my father's Key of David program, I mean, that was the subject. This past weekend, I gave you a couple of clips on Friday. This booklet we have, though, Germany's Conquest of the Balkans. I think it's from 1999 or 2000. I mean, it's been around for a long time, but if you go back and review this booklet, here again, you're going to see how that even in the early 1990s, I mean, just soon after the Berlin Wall comes down, Germany reunites, and already it begins to push its weight around Europe. And of course, most European nations they were happy to comply. Germany got its way. Just a few excerpts from that booklet. It says in 1991, this is my father writing, Croatia and Slovenia moved to become independent of Yugoslavia. Virtually the whole world opposed the move, including the United Nations, NATO, even the European Economic Community. Yugoslavia was in turmoil. The region had a long history of dangerous volatility. It was clear that such a huge geopolitical shift would totally destabilize the Balkans. That's why the world saw the situation as a danger. We can't just sit back and let the Balkans blow up. That's exactly why Germany saw it as an opportunity. Listen to this. In December 1991, Germany, although strongly opposed by the EEC, the U.S., and the UN, recognized the breakaway states of Croatia and Slovenia. Pope John Paul II quickly did the same. This was not a coincidence. The people of these two Balkan states are staunchly loyal to the Roman Catholic Church and also to the Nazi machine from World War II. Those old hostilities, they never did die. It's just like Mr. Armstrong said, they just went underground for a while. It says, when America and Europe protested this aggressive move, Germany threatened to pull out of the EEC. And so you continue looking at that history, recent history. Eventually, America came around and granted Germany's will. Sure, if you want to break it up, get those old World War II alliances together, we'll not only give you our nod of approval, we'll actually lead the military effort. It was astonishing here again that the U.S. helped to empower the reemergence of this final resurrection of the Holy Roman Empire. As I say, if you don't have Germany's conquest of the Balkans, that would be some good recent history to review from the 1990s. You look at this other article, I forget when this was written. Putin remembers Yugoslavia. That was at the Trumpet magazine. He says here, in 1999, the New York Times wrote, strong German support for Croatian independence from Yugoslavia and Croatia's adoption of the hymn, Danke Deutschland, or Thank You Germany, when that independence came in 1991, only reinforced Serbian misgivings. I mean, Serbia was made out to be the bad guy all through that decade. Croatia clearly knew its revolt succeeded because of Germany. And the point my father makes in this Trumpet article is that Putin sees all this. He knows about these old World War II alliances. He understands the history. They may make some secret deals to betray certain ones like the United States, but there's a history of aggression between Germany and Russia that runs deep as well. There's another article. This goes way back to 1995 at the Trumpet. If you're not a Trumpet subscriber, by the way, make sure you call our operators today. You can see there, America's German lovers. The 800 number, 1-866-930-3024. There's no cost, no obligation for a subscription to this magazine. You can get a free 1-year subscription. Just call our operators today. But a point my father makes in this old issue of the Trumpet is that, it would be one thing to forgive a nation that has had so much hostility toward yours if there was an ounce of repentance. I mean, God forgives upon repentance and faith. And as my father notes in this article, there never has been a national repentance or otherwise for what Germany did in World War II. It says, while the rest of the world, especially Europe, is becoming more and more alarmed at Germany's political and military power, again, this is in 1995, America is embracing the Germans with open arms. Where's this leading? Well, it's leading to where we are right now, today. And it's going to be getting a lot worse. It says, while Europe is frightened by Germany's control over the EU, America has an unparalleled love affair with the Germans. We seem to have no fear of Germany's power over Europe and its potential danger, in spite of the fact that they started World Wars I and II. In fact, we're greatly helping the Germans achieve their ambitions. This, as I said last week on this program, this is Donald Trump's one big blind spot. This is his greatest error. He's reaching out to madmen, dictators, thinks he can make peace with Hamas, with Russia, with Putin. And then meanwhile, with the lovers, he's saying, yeah, rebuild. Pay up, build a military, protect yourself. But what about the history? What about the history of aggression when there's a powerful military in the heart of Europe? He says, Herbert Armstrong predicted for many years that Britain would either withdraw or be kicked out of the EU. He said this because of all the prophecies showing that America and Britain become victims of a resurrected Holy Roman Empire in the very near future. My father's reminding readers of this in 1995. And it didn't happen until 2016. The same year Donald Trump shocked the world and won the presidential election for his first term. Britain decided to pull out of the EU. That was prophesied. That was an electrifying time for God's work. As we saw so many of these prophecies, these bold statements made decades ago come to fruition. We're about to see many more, and we've got to brace ourselves for it. We've got to be emotionally prepared for what's ahead. It says here, already Germany has great power over an area that was once comprising the Holy Roman Empire. He quotes Bernard Connolly. It's a battle for control of the European superstate in which French technocrats confront German federalists, both sides claiming to fight under the banner of Charlemagne. Yes, as my father said on the program this weekend, they're just awaiting their next Charlemagne. The spirit of Charlemagne is alive and well in the heart of Europe. That Charlemagne figure is most likely not Friedrich Merz, but we're certainly seeing the direction that Germany is headed in, the direction that Europe is headed in. It says in that 1995 article, today America has a lover relationship with Germany from whom your mind is alienated. That's referencing Ezekiel 23. It says Germany is a Gentile nation, not of the nations of Israel. It says in 2 world wars, America and Britain were allies who fought against Germany. We survived to a great extent because of our special relationship. Now that it is broken, does that mean, or does that not also portend a gloomy future? Here you've seen a severing of the ties of these brother nations, Ephraim, Manasseh, Judah. It's talked about in the prophet Hosea's book. It then quotes the late Margaret Thatcher. She said, Germany's national character is to dominate. Germany's caused 2 world wars in living memory. As I say, this was written in 1995. This was when the world was just, 40, 50 years removed from that nightmare that was World War II, the one that Winston Churchill warned about. A voice crying in the wilderness. Nobody paid attention. Or at least they didn't until it was almost too late. And then God intervened. He had an active hand in that history as it was unfolding. Whether you look at Dunkirk or D-Day, any of the other miracles, the incredible miracles with weather or strategy, that was the sixth emergence of the Holy Roman Empire. And we're about to witness the seventh. It's in the early stages. He talks about just all the writings that we've produced over the years on this subject. As I said last week, I played you the clips, and in fact, I've got a few that we didn't get to on Friday's show. Listen to this from my father's 1993 Key of David on Germany in Prophecy, clip 12.
Many nations have been destroyed by the military power of the Germans. In the book Anvil of Civilization, author Leonard Catrell says, "In all the annals of human conquest, it is difficult to find any people more dedicated to bloodshed and slaughter than the Assyrians. Their ferocity and cruelty have few parallels save in modern times." That's a very interesting statement. Did you know that the ancient Assyrians are the present-day Germans? And it isn't that difficult to prove. The greatest war-making machine in all history was the Assyrian war-making machine anciently. They were great conquerors. They had superior weapons and superior organization. And they are back on the world scene today. The modern name for Assyria is Germany. The greatest power in Europe is Germany, and your Bible says they are going to become the most dangerous power in the world.
Not exactly a popular message when you think about the way America views Germany today as a lover. The greatest war-making machine in history. You're going to turn it over to them and say, hey, we're out. The U.S. is out. Russia may be coming in. Germany needs to rebuild. Germany needs to recreate a war machine, a military machine, and lead Europe, a unified Europe. And then you think of Daniel 2, you think of Revelation 17, you think of the 10 kings. All of these prophecies, Daniel 2, Daniel 7, Revelation 13, Revelation 17. Add to that Daniel 8, Daniel 11. We're seeing it transpire, the Holy Roman Empire in prophecy. We have a booklet by that title. I told you the one about the Balkans conquest. He was right. Hopefully you have these publications. If you don't, just call that 800 number, as I mentioned earlier, 1-866-930-3024. There's no cost or obligation. We'll send it out freely. Freely we have received from God, and freely we give. Listen to one final clip from 1993, clip 13.
The German military machine shows no pity. It didn't in World War II, did it? It is in his heart to destroy, Isaiah says. It's like, well, that's the way it's been done throughout history. When they get into their military machine. The Germans have a long history as intense military destroyers. Any historian can tell you that.
That's right. You don't even need Bible prophecy. You look at history. You look at what it's done from one generation to the next. This is why we have to, I brought this out even in class this morning, just the importance of staying grounded in God's Word. I mean, the point I made this morning going through Ephesians 5 and 6 is that God's Word sheds light on the sins and problems that we need to overcome in our lives so that we can become perfect like God, so that we can build godly character, so that we can walk by faith in the steps of Christ. But God's prophetic Word also sheds light on world events. What is to happen in the future? Tomorrow's news today. The United States and Britain in prophecy. I mean, that's the master text on Bible prophecy. That one written by Herbert Armstrong many, many years ago. As I say, we're going to be on top of this story from here on out. We have to. We have to, because Ezekiel 33 says, I mean, in the end, I mean, they may like the message, some of them that listen, that tune in, but they're not going to act on it. Most, at least, will not. But then after the fact, they're going to know that they were warned. They're going to know that a prophet was among them. They're going to know that God, in his mercy and love, he did in fact sound the alarm. But we've got to act on that. When we come back, we'll turn our attention to some of the dramatic changes we're seeing here in the United States with the Jeroboam administration. Just a few weeks in, Donald Trump even talked about how that, he had a sports analogy saying if you get off to a quick start, it can build your confidence. And here at home, here in the United States, I mean, that's certainly what we're seeing. We'll talk more on this when we come back. You're listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily. We'll be right back.
Daily news, Bible prophecy. See the connection on the Trumpet Daily. Are you feeling overwhelmed by the flood of news and information? You need something to sift the news and bring you only what matters most. You need the Trumpet Daily. You also need something to help you understand not just what's happening now, but what will happen next. You need the Trumpet Daily. Only the Trumpet Daily accurately matches daily news to precise Bible prophecies. Because Bible prophecy is the only tool up to the task of sifting the news down to what's important and showing you what will happen next. Join host Stephen Flurry every weekday. Go to trumpetdaily.com.
Nobody's ever seen 4 weeks like we've had, especially the 4 weeks, the first 4 weeks. You know, that's like if you golf, when you sink that first 4-footer in the first hole, it gives you confidence on the next hole. You sink another one. Now you go into that third hole and you can't, and by the time you get to the fifth hole, you feel you can't miss, right? Like a baseball player, he gets up and he hits the first one, and then the second at bat, he hits that one. And, you know, and we have great confidence, and they've lost their confidence, as I said. They really lost their confidence. I watched them. They're really screwed up. I watched this MSNBC, which is a threat to democracy, actually. They're stone cold, but they're stuttering. They're all screwed up. They're all mentally screwed up. They don't know what. Their ratings have gone down the tubes. I don't even talk about CNN. CNN's sort of like, I don't know, they're pathetic, actually. But MSNBC was mean. Their ratings are absolutely down. This Rachel Maddow, what does she have? She's got nothing. Nothing. She took a sabbatical where she worked 1 day a week. They paid her a lot of money. She gets no ratings. I should go against her in the ratings because I'll tell you, she gets no ratings. All she does is to talk about Trump, 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 Trump. All different subjects, Trump this, Trump that. But these people are really, I mean, they lie. They shouldn't be allowed to lie every night. They are really a vehicle of the Democrat Party.
It's amazing when you think about so many of these prominent conservative voices or outlets, even politicians, that were, in his case, canceled, blotted out. He had no voice. That's what he said. Donald Trump said in 2021, I had no voice. They canceled me. And now look, he's saying his opponents have no voice. It's happened in a matter of months, in some cases, where the strongest voices coming from the communist left, the communist infiltration, Barack Obama, all the Hollywood actors, the sports stars, the talking heads on TV. I mean, this weekend they canceled Joy Reid on MSNBC. She's probably the most deranged in her criticism of Donald Trump. She's gone. He mentioned Rachel Maddow. They've lost their confidence. In a lot of cases, they've lost their shows. And now Trump, I mean, he's getting he got Kash Patel through last week. That was when it was first announced that he was the nomination. There were a lot of people, even in conservative circles, that said, I don't think Kash, the fact that Kash got through it makes you think Matt Gaetz would have, if he would have just stayed in the fight. As it is, he stepped aside. Pam Bondi's in there now at the DOJ. Kash Patel heading up the FBI. He's already transferring FBI agents from the D.C. swamp out to field offices. And a lot of them are probably going to retire because of it or quit. Because they've had this job in the swamp. And then to be reassigned to some office in Alabama. It's a great way to prune things back some, which is the whole point of Doge, Elon Musk. And it's happening. It's happening at the CIA. It's happening at the IRS. It's happening at the Treasury. Then yesterday it's announced that Dan Bongino, I mean, you listen to some of these statements. He's obviously the podcaster that used to be a Secret Service guy, highly educated. And he's made statements in the past about, releasing the Jeffrey Epstein files, how that Epstein was probably an agent of some Middle Eastern nation. And then the fact that everybody, even loosely associated with the Mar-a-Lago raid, they should be canned. They should be fired. I think a lot of them have been already. He's the deputy director of the FBI. He doesn't even need Senate confirmation. So you've got Kash Patel, a regular guest on Steve Bannon's show. And then you've got Dan Bongino right underneath him. Speaking of Steve Bannon, they have the straw poll at CPAC over the weekend. And J.D. Vance leads the way for 2028, followed by Steve Bannon. I mean, this is quite the swing to go from the dear leader's dominance and all of his acolytes, all of his henchmen, and they've been effectively silenced. God has shoved them aside. America, domestically, it's being saved, temporarily saved. God intervened to save Israel by the hand of Jeroboam. Isn't it remarkable to watch? You see the saving of America at home, and then abroad, you see all of these gross miscalculations that will end up empowering the Holy Roman Empire, empowering the king of the south, empowering the kings of the east. And all of this, too, in fulfillment of Bible prophecy. But just coming back to America, listen to a bit more from Donald Trump at CPAC on Saturday, clip 1.
Welcome back to the nation's capital, where our movement is thriving, fighting, winning, and dominating Washington like never before. Nobody's ever seen anything like this before. They used to have a little smaller crowds here. It's a little bigger. The fraudsters, liars, cheaters, globalists, and deep state bureaucrats are being sent packing. The illegal alien criminals are being sent home. We're draining the swamp and we're restoring government by the people, for the people. For years, Washington was controlled by a sinister group of radical left Marxists, warmongers, and corrupt special interests who drained our wealth, attacked our liberties, obliterated our borders, and sucked our country dry. Not any longer. But on November 5th, we stood up to all the corrupt forces that were destroying America. We took away their power. We took away their confidence. They lost their confidence. You know, do you ever watch? They lost their confidence. Oh, it's so nice to watch. And we took back our country. And we must be doing something right, because we've got the highest poll numbers that I've ever had and that any Republican president has ever had.
I think it's something like 72% support the efforts of Elon Musk and Doge to trim the fat, to reduce the size of government, to fire federal employees. And then you have these people out there trying to defend the indefensible, trying to defend big government. big spending, robbing the treasury. We've got plenty of clips along those lines. Play the one from Ilhan Omar.
These people are just idiots. I really, I'm at the point where it's become really hard to have an intellectual debate with any of these people, because the level of stupidity that they are displaying every single day is frankly embarrassing, not just in Congress, but as Americans. And the fact that these people are allowed to say just the most ridiculous things tells you that the dumbing of the United States has arrived, because how else do we get a Trump presidency again?
So here's this woman who married her brother to try to get her green card. She's a foreigner, basically. Managed to work her way into Congress. And she's going on about how stupid Trump supporters are. How stupid we must be as a nation for Donald Trump to ever have a second term. This is all they have. It's all they have left. They've lost their confidence. They've lost their mojo. They've lost their offices in some cases. They've lost their jobs. They've lost their voice. They've lost their microphone. I mean, when you go back to the hysterics stirred up by the regime media following January 6, 2021, that was just a little over 4 years ago. Who could have ever imagined this? Donald Trump had lost his voice. Here again, you look at all of the articles we've had at the Trumpet magazine about Obama being silenced. We told you it was going to happen. We didn't know how, but we said God's going to have to silence him, move him out of the way, do something. And you look at the troubles that even Obama, the dear leader, is having. Those divorce rumors have intensified. A lot of the tabloids have zeroed in on this. Radar Online, it really is the split of the century, and it goes way beyond Barack and Michelle. Tongues have been furiously wagging in Tinseltown about Barack and Michelle Obama secretly divorcing. So we'll see. A lot of it's rumor and gossip. But the one that they swooned before, they don't swoon anymore. They don't swoon. This other article, this is from the Daily Beast, why the Obamas' divorce rumors might not be their biggest problem. How did this happen? It was groundbreaking when Barack Obama was hustled into the White House in 2008 on the backs of millions of tiny $5 donations. But more than 3 years after breaking ground on his much vaunted $830 million presidential center, it appears that some donors are balking at making the kind of big ticket donations the former president might have expected. He's not getting the money now. Because people know. People know the way these Democrats operate. People know they're losers now. I mean, how about that story about the speed rail system in California? I think you go back like 2 decades and it's gotten something like $15 or $16 billion of funding from the federal government. And there are prominent Democrats in California and otherwise that want to see the money keep coming. They haven't built anything. It's just poured into a giant slush fund, just like so many of these agencies that DOJ is uncovering corruption all through it. It, like I said, sunlight, it's a great disinfectant. It really is exposing a lot of evil. We'll see, though, if they follow through on some of the tough talk. You've heard it from Bongino. You've heard it from Kash Patel. Tom Homan said it over the weekend regarding Boston, a sanctuary city. He's been looking through the stats there, and he said at the CPAC, I got through to 9 child rape. I didn't even make it through all the documents. 9 child rapists just set free in Boston. So Homan says, I'm coming for you, the mayor of Boston, or the police chief of the Boston police force. who's a radical leftist Democrat. We'll see. I mean, if you talk that tough and you don't follow through, that doesn't make you look very tough. We'll see what happens in Boston. We'll see if it's similar to the tough talk about releasing the hostages in Gaza. If it's not backed by, the big stick, so to speak, then in the end, what changes? If it's just rhetoric, if it's just talk, it'd be nice to see Kash Patel and Dan Bongino actually follow through and clean up this corrupt agency that nobody trusts anymore, the FBI, I mean. Back to this Obama thing. Rather than shine as the nation's lasting tribute to America's first black commander-in-chief, costly delays and worrying setbacks are in danger of turning the 225-foot Watchtower Library and Museum project on the south side of Chicago into the Obama's financial folly. So you've got the divorce rumors, you've got Obama's financial folly, you've got this dreadful-looking building that they were planning to build. It's just perfect, isn't it? Everything about it has been a disaster. Big problems for the dear leader. God brought this on. God's doing the exposing. It says, while the media is busy worrying about Barack and Michelle Obama being on the outs, they haven't been seen publicly together since December. It says the center's fundraisers have more substantial concerns on their minds. These deep pocket donors, the donations are drying up. It says we're told there's a certain schadenfreude in some circles as the Obamas weren't seen to be playing the game as they climbed the slippery pole to the White House. He's arrogant, said one donor, who ended up giving substantially less than they could. He's arrogant? They said this about Obama? They said this about the dear leader? This is from the Daily Beast. He didn't help others when they were trying to fundraise, and so they're not going to look out for the Obamas now. What a different tone than 2009, 2010, 2011, when Obama could just lie to your face and people would swoon. People would worship him. Not anymore. There's no quid pro quo because it's a one-way street. Ah, yes. Turns out they were just in it for themselves. There's a lot of that in the swamp. Donors may also be asking how more than $5 million was paid out in executive compensation and $27 million in other wages in 2023, with Obama pal Valerie Jarrett pulling in a $740,000 salary for a project that's not likely to open for another year at the earliest. They're just raking in the money on salary. Surprise, surprise. Another boondoggle. There's a lot of them these days, and a lot of them being exposed. Listen again to Donald Trump from CPAC, clip 2.
We're liberating our country right now. We're doing all these things that you're reading about. We're liberating our country. I first spoke to this gathering 14 years ago, and I won your straw poll. I didn't know anything about a straw poll. They took this big straw poll, and I won by like 27 points. And I figured, that's good. Maybe I should keep doing it. And I did. And I became president. Isn't that great? Who would think?
Liberation at home, and quite a few dangerous and fast-moving events abroad, and all of it in perfect alignment with the sure word of Bible prophecy. That's all we have time for on today's show, the fastest moving hour in broadcasting. You're listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily. Thanks for joining us on today's show, and we'll see you again tomorrow.